Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle, and you are listening to or watching Radio Maine. Today, I have with me artist Ryan Kohler. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm appreciating this piece that we have behind us because I actually really love red boats, believe it or not.
Me too.
It's a random thing to like, right?
Yeah, it is. Very specific thing, but...
Well, tell me about this piece. So I think you were talking about Rockland Harbor. Is this actually a representative of a boat in Rockland Harbor, or?
Yeah, I mean, typically I work from photographs or, when I can from life in the field, but this particular one was, I think it was a picture I took last year out in the harbor, and I never really know when I'm going to get around to painting a picture, or if I ever do at all. I just take a ton of source materials and I'll get to it when I get to it, but this one came up recently. I do like how it turned out, but what draws me to paint something is, first of all, I sort of have to see it as a painting, especially if it's from a photograph or, even from life, actually, I should say both. But I have to sort of visualize it as a painting, and that makes my job a lot easier. Sometimes it's very clear. But the other thing too is color. I obviously I love color a lot. So again, the red boat thing. It's hard to describe it. I just know when I know, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm painting today. I'm just going through pictures on my hard drive and trying to decide how to keep myself busy for the afternoon, and then off I start and hit the ground running, get going.
And your technique is kind of a combination technique. It's not strictly painting, correct?
Yeah, and it took a while for me to get to that. I didn't always paint like this. I've gone through several techniques over the course of my development as an artist, I guess you could say. But so right now, what it is acrylic paint is the fundamental of, it's the foundation of the painting on canvas. I should start with that. But I just do the best acrylic painting that I can, and then let it sit for a while, and I come back to it maybe the next day and start collaging different elements on top of the acrylic paint. Sometimes letting those collage elements kind of blend in, and sometimes it's nice to know when to let things jump out at you too, areas for them to dissolve into the painting, and areas for high contrast and obvious collage, if it's text or a dark color on top of a light color. It's always a little different. But yeah, that leads to some really unexpected things that would not normally happen if I was just painting. And the materials in my studio, the papers, are always changing because it just depends on what I've used up or what I haven't used up that day. But yeah, papers come from all over. So
for example, as I'm looking here, one of the words that jumps out is looks like a part of the word bright. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so I should say a lot of the materials that I've been using, especially lately, are from album covers or from music. I sort of have a music background, so sometimes I can remember where things come from. Sometimes I can't. In this case, I can. I think it was a poster, a promotional poster for the band Bright Eyes, and it fit the color that I was looking for. At least was very close to it. And as I'm sitting there painting, I'm just cutting these little bits and holding it up to the canvas and trying things, and oh, does that work? Does it not work? I have to ask myself a pretty basic question, does it make the painting better or worse? Apparently I decided that made it better. But I don't really think too much about what does it mean right off the bat anyway. I try not to get bogged. When I'm painting, I'm in autopilot mode. I'm is this interesting or is it not? And I try not to be too obvious. That's actually a rare instance where you can almost read the entire word. Sometimes I'll cut the word right in half vertically, and flip it upside down, so it's a little more ambiguous. But it's a lot of trial and error. It's kind of a bit trying to put a puzzle together, but I don't really have all the pieces, or I have way too many pieces, and I'm just trying to make it fit. But the pieces don't even have to fit, so it's a lot of trial and error and fumbling around and like looking for that. I'm like, oh, where was that color red I had, like that red piece of paper I had like last week or something, you know? So I'm goofing around in the studio like that.
It sounds like you go forward with kind of a gestalt of how you would like to get to a specific image, and then you work to move to that image by fitting things in places and seeing how it works out.
Yeah, it very much takes me for a ride, like, you know, and it's reciprocating and push and pull and back and forth. Pretty much the only thing I'm like really in true control of is like my composition, which is very much laid out where general colors are, but the rest is like free. I can do whatever I want. I can edit things as I go. And that's all what painting is anyway, is a series of adjustments.
You almost went down a completely different career path. In fact, your education started you down a career path that is more, I would say, linear than this.
Yeah, I did a whole semester of architecture at the University of Maine at Augusta. And I think that was pretty important to like the development of my like artistic brain. It, you know, like thinking about perspective and like these like architecture, like isometric views and axonometric views. I still like kind of think about that, but I mean, not in too detail, but it was a little too like, it just wasn't messy enough for me. I like messy paintings, and I like coloring outside the lines, and there's paint splatter here, and you know, it's very abstract, I think. And architectural plans aren't normally abstract, so I don't know. This just fits with me better.
Did you always have a sense that you were interested in art when you were growing up? Did you have a sense that you liked the kind of the creation of messiness and seeing how things worked out?
I did, for sure. It's something I've always done. I did sports as a kid, but I was always interested in art too. Like I was always drawing. I was always like painting like on my bedroom walls. And did I ever think that it was a viable career path? Like certainly not. Even when I was going through school, I was like, I'm going to have a degree like in art. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't know if I'm going to, you know, be able to use this, but eventually, I mean, I did. I after I graduated, I actually was doing music a lot, playing in bands and like recording and producing. But when that sort of ended, there was a major like shift in my life, and I started painting pretty aggressively, and I never looked back. And thank God I did.
So, what was the major shift? What caused you to move from music to something else?
Well, I just had to figure out a way to stay creative without music in my life. I mean, it still is, but it's just not actively like booking shows and, you know, recording. And plus I was playing with a lot of other people too. And when you're, I don't know, unless you're with the right group of people, it's tough to rely on other people sometimes. Whereas if I'm an artist, I don't have to rely on anyone. I can always be painting, and I'm self-motivated. So
you had a connection with the Portland Art Gallery from a few years back, I understand.
It's kind of funny how life works like that. But my wife and I, when we got engaged in 2017, booked a photography, engagement photography session with a Portland photographer, Tom Kuchar. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Tom, shout out to Tom. He suggested that we meet up in Portland. So we wanted to see a show at Portland Art Gallery, so we met there, and he's like, "Oh, well, why don't we just shoot some photos here?" And we're like, "Great," you know. So we actually shot some of our engagement photos in the gallery before, you know, going down to the water and stuff.
Do you remember who was in the show at that time?
It was a Dan Corey show. I don't remember who else, but I mean, we were just looking at everything.
You actually have suggested in some of the information that I've read that you like Maine artists, and in particular, you call out Colin Page as someone that you've,
yeah,
like.
For sure. Probably, I'm not the only one, I'm sure. But when I discovered Colin's work, I was like, wow, like this guy's killing it, and it's obviously really good, and is obviously a professional artist. I'm like, maybe I can do this thing, you know, maybe I can be an artist and find a way to make a living doing it. So that really kind of motivated me to start, you know, really painting every day and really trying to improve and thinking about ways to, grow as an artist. And thank God I did, because, I wouldn't be here, talking to you now if I didn't. So
He's an interesting example because he is a younger artist and in the Mid-Coast area, and really was, I think he worked hard to be pretty successful, but at a relatively young age, I think.
yeah, I think so. I didn't know. I mean, he's a little bit older than me, I'm sure, but he's a great guy, and he's really helped me like over the years. I reach out to him from time to time if I have questions, and yeah, he's a good guy, easy to talk to, and obviously extremely talented. So he motivates me. I'm like, oh, just when I think I'm doing something good, I'm like, oh, I got to paint better. I look at his stuff. So
You also consider Picasso to be sort of the greatest of all time.
yeah, because he is, I think anyway. When I was real little in like grade school, I think I did a project on Picasso. It's like, I don't want to say book report, but like something equivalent, like something easy. But that was like the first serious art that I remember looking at as a kid, and it always stuck with me. And every time I'd go back to look at his stuff, I just consistently blown away. And he's like probably the most talked about artist of all time, and is like still underrated to me. He's just that good. I don't know.
That's such a specific artist to like as an 8-year-old.
Yeah, and I guess I should mention Dalí too. Dalí was like my second like art love, and I was like really into like psychedelic art for a while too because of him. And I was like, I specifically remember my dad showing me a Dalí book. I think we were at like an airport like bookstore or something. He's like, Ryan, check these out. And I was like, how is he painting like this? I didn't know this was possible. I'm still like a little kid. I'm like, this is so cool. So that always stuck with me.
So you're just a little kid, you're in the airport and you're looking at, I don't know, the melting clocks or something like that. And that was your question, that it's, so both he and Picasso, they had such a different perspective from one that I think most of us get in early art school classes.
Yeah, probably, but served me well. Definitely shaped who I am. I think, well, sometimes when I'm painting too, I watch a lot of artist documentaries, and the painting you're referring to is called The Persistence of Memory. And I'm trying to remember, but I recently learned that painting originally sold for like $250, and it's like this big. It's like 16 by 20 or something. It's not big. And just a random fun fact that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's probably a lot more than that now, if one were able to actually purchase it.
Yeah, at least double.
You also have kind of a little menagerie at home. You have chickens and a couple of dogs.
Yeah, it'd probably be more if my wife had her way. But yeah, we got 2 Australian Shepherd females, 2 cats, and a handful of chickens. My wife's parents breed Australian Shepherds, so there's always dogs around. They have like a dozen dogs, and it's nice because we get to see them being born all the time, which is really cool.
And you just bought a house up in your wife's hometown, I believe.
Yes, so it's in Skowhegan. We've been living in Skowhegan for several years now. I think we bought our first house in 2016 and just sold it this past year. So the house we came from was just a little in town, like in a neighborhood house. But we've recently relocated to a place more out in the country, and we've got some more land now for the dogs to run and chickens to roam and cats to get into trouble. It's got gorgeous views. We can see Sugarloaf from there, the Bigelow Range. You can see Mount Washington from the house. So it's quite a place, but it's been a lot of work. It needed a fair amount of renovations. That we have a great contractor to help us do all that, but I mean, there's some stuff that's just left to me, so I'm learning a lot and getting my hands dirty, and it's opening my mind to. It's kind of cool. Like I'm realizing what I'm capable of. Like, wow, I didn't know I could build walls. I didn't know I could sheetrock, and floor and I'm painting big rooms and stuff, and some stuff's easier than others, but yeah, so a lot of hard work, but it's coming along. Yeah, we're getting there.
And you also recently moved into your new studio, I believe.
Yeah, I've been in there like 2 weeks. It's like brand new, and I'm still getting used to it and trying to like break it in. But so far, it's been really great, and I have much more. I have a lot of pride in it now because I basically built it myself. It's a renovated space above a garage. So before it was completely uninsulated. It was just plywood floors, and it was cold up there. So I had to take on that project basically myself. I completely insulated it, built up the walls because we we're going to have a washer and dryer in like a small area in the corner behind some walls. Another half wall for like some storage space. And yeah, so I built that up and then sheetrocked it and said, good enough. I'm moving in because I needed a place to get back to work. So I was really excited to be in there.
So it sounds like using your hands in various ways has always been really important to you, whether it's as a musician, as an artist, building your studio.
Yeah, I mean, out of necessity in this case, it's like, I got to get this done. I got to get it built so I can go paint. But, and yeah, for better or worse, like I totally like bashed my thumb while like trying to screw in a stud into the wall. And like, of course I like slipped off the screwdriver right into my thumb and some words were uttered, but blood, sweat, and tears all going into it. So
does this feed into this idea that you like doing art because it's messy, because it is part of kind of really fully kind of immersing yourself in the subject?
Yeah, I guess so. Like if I'm not able to like paint for a couple days or something, and like I look down and like there's no paint on my hands, like this is weird. I've been out of the studio for too long, But I like it. It's I don't know. Everyone has their place in this world, and everyone's more like equipped for certain jobs, I guess. But I guess just the 9 to 5 isn't for me. Like I'm not as good on a keyboard and in front of a computer. I'd rather be doing something in building. Who knows what I'd be doing if I wasn't an artist? Like, I don't know.
Well, apparently for some period of time you worked in a party store. So
I did,
that's
yeah.
what you were doing.
Yeah, I worked there for a long time. Again, working with my hands, I guess, like, because part of the job was literally like tying balloons at times. So, yeah, there was a whole retail side to the store, and we actually did a lot of balloon art. We'd build like balloon palm trees and balloon cactuses and whatever else, you name it, like whatever someone asked, we're like, okay, we'll try to build that. But it was a great business, locally owned, had a great boss. He knew what I was trying to do. Like, I was always painting, like before and after work, and we had a great relationship. But I am full-time now, and I'm glad I am.
So Ryan, what was the pivot point for you? What was the day that you said, you know what? I think I need to do this and do it all the time and really fully invest myself in my future.
Yeah, it was when we moved. We bought the house. We closed on the house September 28th of last year. And it was basically right after that I put in my notice. And that was scary. That was terrifying for sure. Because I've always like dreamed of that moment, but you always have that doubt in your mind. Like, can I really pull this off? Can I be a full-time artist? Can I make a living doing this? And so far so good, but hard work is completely necessary to get it done. So I paint every day, work as hard as I can.
So that is part of what really full-time artists need to do, is they need to show up in the studio, whether they feel inspired or not, and put the time in.
Yeah, for sure. I don't wait for it. I sometimes think the most productive sessions I have are on days where I don't feel like painting. And like every artist has those days. Like I think a lot of them do anyway, unless you're one of those people like, I just have to be in my space creating. Like some days you just don't want to. And I'm lucky enough where I can like go play guitar and like refresh my mind or something. And I have this other outlet, but usually I force myself to work through it, and I, just start to get moving. Like, and I used to always tell myself this too, like, because a lot of the not wanting to work, not wanting to paint comes from a fear of like failure. There's whole books like written about fear in art, right? So my way to get through that was like, it doesn't even have to be good. It doesn't have to be good at all. Just go do something. And then I'd be like, all right, well, I'd start, get moving, get the hands moving, the blood flowing, and the paint flowing, and the brushes moving. And then before you know it, you probably got something pretty good. And then you're like, oh, this is all right. And then it motivates you to keep painting more. So that was always like my little mental trick to like kick myself in the butt and get going.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea that if you're a writer, you show up and you put 10 words on the page. You just open up the notebook.
Right, any 10 words. Like,
whatever it is that you're doing, you have to jumpstart that and not wait for inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm going to go out and seek inspiration, I think.
I'm not sure everybody knows that Skowhegan really is a very creative part of not only Maine, but the world, and that there is an actual art school in Skowhegan.
Yeah, there is. It's a kind of a world famous school, Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, which I have been on campus, but I've never attended there. And it's funny, actually, at my old job, I used to do deliveries there sometimes, like, tables and chairs or whatever for the students. But it's a great place. And I used to do a lot of outdoor shows at the art fairs and festivals and stuff. And with talking to people, oftentimes people would be like, oh, where are you from? And I'd be like, Skowhegan. And like one of two things would happen. Like either they'd have no idea where Skowhegan is. They've never heard of it. And they're like, what? Who? Where? Or they have heard of it. And it's probably because of Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture. So yeah, it is a nice little artistic community, and there's actually a lot of great artists there. But there's also not too much going on where I'm too distracted all the time. I can make sure I get to work.
So was that part of when you moved into your new house in a more rural area, was that part of your kind of opening up your mind so that you really had the chance to just be working on the art?
Not really. I don't think I thought about it too much. It's just kind of like when we were looking for houses, we were looking in the central Maine area, and that's just kind of where the right house popped up. So it's one of those fate things. So
if there was any thought, it wasn't a conscious thought.
No, not necessarily. I mean, we wouldn't still be there if we didn't like it, Maybe it's just like a character flaw in me, I guess, but like I'm just pretty passive sometimes. So like stuff happens to you in life, and that's where the house that's where the opportunity presented itself. And that's where we bought our first house and where we got married. And yeah, then here we are now.
And how did you and your wife meet?
We met through friends when I was doing music more heavily. So like, we just met through a friend's house as, I was meeting up with him. It was actually a former bandmate of mine. Yep. And she was there.
And does she do art? What is her background?
Yeah, she paints too. She doesn't like to admit it, but she's a great artist, and she's a great photographer and all around great person. But yeah, she doesn't paint as much as me. Obviously, I probably suck all the artistic life out of the relationship probably too much because I just paint all the time. But I like it when she does.
Well, I think that's actually really interesting because in your case, you both understand each other's need to be creative, which doesn't always happen in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. She's always been very good about that. She has known early on that I'm a creative type, and yeah, I give her credit for that because it's tough. Like it's as a young artist, like you're not successful at first. It's very rare. So she's seen us through some tough times, and like when I was doing outdoor shows and like, especially with those, like there's never any guarantee that you're going to make even a sale. And there were many times where I didn't. So I'd come home like all bummed and like, better luck next weekend or whatever. But she's always stuck by my side and just understands that I just need to like push through it.
When you talk about this fear of creating, this sort of fear of not being able to be perfect kind of the first time out, Is this something that you feel like you experienced earlier on in your education? Is it something that you just kind of came to when you went into the artistic field, or?
Yeah, I would say it probably is more prevalent in beginners. Like I don't know, as you paint more and more and you gain confidence in yourself. So that does kind of like disappear. It used to affect me a lot more, but it's always still there. Like, and I wonder if other artists like feel that too. Just the fear of failure, like is this painting going to work out? And usually I just struggle through it. And if it doesn't, then oh well, I'll just flip it around and try again, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I don't know, but I feel like it's always there. But when you're younger, it's definitely like something you think about more because you just don't have the confidence. You don't have the experience. You're like, I haven't done this before as much. So it can be discouraging.
Yeah, so I would think that if you are an artist that has been established, then you at least have this kind of you can look back and say, well, this person bought my work, this person bought my work, and you can.
Yeah, and it's when a painting sells, it's almost like it validates that painting in some way, and it validates your process and your creative, workflow and what you're trying to achieve. And it definitely builds your confidence and self-esteem as an artist.
Do you ever have the chance to talk to the people who buy your paintings?
Yeah, I have lots of repeat customers, which is really nice. Yeah, I've met a lot of great people along the way. Some of them from the outdoor festivals have turned into like great customers over the years, and we stay in touch for sure.
And have they talked to you about what it is about your work that appeals to them?
Yeah, some more than others. I think it's always a little different. Usually it's just a sense of like excitement or like it can be as, how do I say it? Like, it's just like a fleeting feeling, I guess, is how it's been described to me before. Like, just like a moment in time, or often it's just about the technique too. Like, that's just really cool and they like studying it and it looks great in their space, and that's great too. But it can be as complex as they want.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different reasons why someone might buy a piece that you've created.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and a part of me stays with every painting I do. I think that's true of any artist because you literally exhaust, energy into that painting, and I think it stays there. So I try to like infuse as much energy as I can into my canvases, and I think that responds well to people. I've heard it described as like a party on a canvas. There's lots of little, splashes or almost confetti-like pieces.
Yeah, when I look at this piece behind us, I like the fact that there's a W hanging out up on the coastline. There's something kind of interesting about that.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I don't remember where that was from. Nope. I mean, you should see my studio. I've got several tables with just papers like scattered everywhere. I'm like, I think I was looking for some like high contrast, like dark bluish purplish piece to put behind this like boat. It's just a series of shapes that insinuate a boat, and that's what came up. And I tried to cut it in like a abstract way that, there's a bit of white there, which could imply like a bit of the rigging or something. But I try not to be too literal. I'm not trying to describe every little detail of whatever it is that I'm painting. Like I do want the mind to kind of take over and figure things out for itself. Like, because everyone brings their own unique perspective to the viewing experience of a piece of artwork.
When you were talking about your father pulling a book out at the airport and saying, "Hey, look at this artist, look at Dalí," that's not something every father does. Do your parents have a background in art themselves?
No, they don't. My father's an eye doctor, and my mom is works at a seed company out in Denver. So I'm not really sure where all that came from with me. My grandparents on my father's side are both painters, not full time, but just enthusiastic painters. And I did spend a lot of time at their house growing up, doing my first paintings, actually. My my grandmother on my mother's side was an excellent pianist. Could play anything from ear. Could also write music. So I guess I got the music from one side and the visual painting from the other. But my parents, not so much. I think they're probably more talented than they let on, but they just try to hide it or something. I don't know. I got to get it out of them.
That's right. Currently under wraps.
Yes.
Possibly to
Someday
change
soon,
in the
though.
future.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of people who in medicine, for example, eye doctors, I mean, that's a very visual part of the field.
Yeah, we're both in the visual. Yeah. Like we both help people see in some ways, you know?
Right. So he's doing it kind of from the inside and
Yeah.
you're doing it from the
And
outside.
he is actually a really good photographer too. And he's recently getting into like bird carvings. So I like seeing what he does in his little wood shop too.
So when you're doing art, do you listen to music? Do you think about music? Is there that other aspect?
Yeah, I do. It depends on my mood. You know, it can change. It changes every day. I used to listen. I still do listen to a lot of music, but sometimes I'll just put on like sports radio or I'll listen to documentaries on YouTube about artists, like whoever comes up, podcasts, pretty much whatever strikes me.
I'm thinking, you know, you have this visual element, you have this sort of auditory element, you have this kinesthetic kind of full body element. Like you completely use the space of the world around you.
And I'm still figuring out how to do that. But it's funny, there are like kind of some parallels between what I do with paint and like how I hear music. Sometimes how do I describe it? Like the way the eye travels through a painting is kind of like how a song is presented to you, where it's like intro, you know, maybe it goes into a verse and then like into a bridge and then into a hook where it's like really catchy. So I think about that sometimes, not too much. I'm not trying to like get bogged down by that, but it is interesting. Like sometimes I do think about a painting when it's nearly done. I'm like, how can I like really add like a really kind of catchy little thing that doesn't really make sense, but it's just like catches your ear or your eye in this case. Whoops. Something that kind of doesn't even quite belong there, but it's just like so dumb. But it makes sense. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like the hook of a song. It just catches you and keeps you like circling back to that moment.
Is there one of those in this piece?
I think so. I keep looking at this pipe.
That's what I was going to
Yes,
say.
yeah. Okay, I'm glad that is translating because it's kind of like a, you know, on the side of these lobster boats, there's like often like letters and numbers and symbols and stuff. And like, I try not to paint too specifically. Like if I'm painting a street, I wouldn't like put like on the street sign, like what name of the street. Whereas I wouldn't normally put like, I usually leave out the name of the boat or like the numbers on it. And I'll try to think more abstractly. Again, I try not to be too like obvious. So I was like, that's kind of a funny little logo that I can put on there. And it kind of implies, I don't know, like the markings of all these unique boats. And it's also like high contrast and on a bright piece of red paper. So yeah, it's like the hook of the painting. It's like the chorus.
Yeah,
keep circling back to it.
It's literally a hook. It looks like a hook.
Right. It is.
It also kind of, I look at it and I think old guys with beards doing sea shanties and, you know,
smoking the pipes.
But you're right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. It definitely kind of, it changes the painting.
It's very instinctual too. And I paint with intuition a lot. Like I never like had this idea like, oh, I'll put this pipe on this boat. You know, that's kind of what just came up and was on my surface at the time. And of course I try it out and it's like a gut feeling. I'm like, does this work or does it not? And I have to decide basically right then and there. I have a little bit of time where I can remove it, but I'm literally gluing these to this canvas. So I only have so much time to bail on that idea if I need to.
Well, I like it.
Yeah.
I think it works.
I think I do too.
We have.
Yeah, and it's funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but sometimes I'm like, oh, that definitely works, and like I'll come back to it the next day. I'm like, no, that's terrible. Like, and at that point, I can't remove it, but I can add over it. So I kind of just bury it in more paper, and sometimes that leads to even more interesting things.
Well, I'm glad I can see the hook, because we have an artist that I've interviewed and I love his pieces, and he told me there's a cat in every one, and I literally cannot find the cat in his pieces.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel like maybe not as good an art enthusiast as I could be.
Sometimes they're very small, and he's good at that. And it's funny is like, once you learn that there is a cat in every one of his paintings, like sometimes that's all you can think about. Like you see a painting, I'm like, oh, where is it? Where is it? Like, oh, there it is. All right, nice. And then I like enjoy the painting too. I don't know. Maybe it's just my weird brain, how it works. But
well, I have to say, it makes me feel a little sad that you actually know what I'm talking about, and you can probably see the cat and I can't.
yeah,
But I guess I'll have to keep working on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I Spy book. I used
Right.
to love those as a kid.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that you've joined the Portland Art Gallery.
Me too.
I know it's a big kind of jump for you, but
It's great. Yeah. Very excited.
I think it's a great fit. Your work is really wonderful. Now that you've told me this kind of party on a canvas theme, I'm looking at it. Yeah, there's like a kind of the confetti. It's kind of a celebration of the red boat.
Yeah, I do try to make them as fun as possible, and just like bursts of color and explosion of energy, and it's great. It's a really fun way for me to work too, because I'm having fun up there when I'm working. But yeah, I really love Portland, and I'm really excited to be in Portland, and I hope I'm well received, but I have a good feeling. Yeah.
Well, I think so. And having talked to a lot of artists now with this podcast, I agree with you. I think that it is the feeling of the energy that the artist puts into the work for many people, including me, that is really important. So when I look at pieces, I think about the conversations I've had with artists, and it's not just the visual; it's kind of the sense of the art itself.
Yeah, of the person too behind it. You know.
Yeah.
Because all paintings are kind of like self-portraits in kind of odd, abstract ways. I think so. Because as I was saying before, like a piece of you is literally like transferred to that painting via energy. So
does that mean you're basically just a walking party?
It means I only paint self-portraits.
Good answer. Well, I'm hoping people will take the opportunity to hang out with you when we do an opening of yours in the future at the Portland Art Gallery.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, people can go to the Portland Art Gallery website, and they can come into the Portland Art Gallery. And it really, I think, to experience Ryan's pieces, being right there in front of them is really wonderful, because I certainly now have a sense of the work that you do.
It is a different experience in person.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle. You've been listening to or watching Radio Maine. I've been speaking with artist Ryan Kohler. Thanks so much for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thank you.